You could just walk. I'm just gonna get some random shots. Look around like you're waiting for a cab or something. I know I told you to do it fast, but just do it slower. Yep. Okay. Nope. From down that block. Yep. Feature from Feechur Prez. Just doing a quick rundown of exactly what we did in this new project that I created. We weren't able to, unfortunately, get proper BTS, so I'm kind of just going over things now. Maybe this can help somebody, but overall, just to show you guys what we kind of did to get this. So this is kind of just a little thumbnail poster that I'm going to use to promote this. I'll put it on Facebook, Instagram, and things like that. But let's forget this and let's go right into the to the video. Yeah, so this is kind of what I did at the very beginning. I wanted to have kind of like someone searching for a model. And so what I did, I just used this template here. Got it from Envato Elements. And then I typed in the name of the model and I was able to animate all of this and then like kind of act like I was actually going into search. And so you'll see it in the edit how it all goes in, but typically you would hit that search bar and then that would bring up what you're looking for. But we just was doing this for a stylistic type of way to introduce the video. And so I just used a simple overlay and used this text. This is actually text used by Vogue. So it's Vogue text, kind of that flashy fashion style. And then, let that kind of go in. Now, this is kind of what I want to talk about. This is the first scene. Now, this is at the Palace Theater in Albany, New York. Now, if anybody knows anything about the Palace Theater in Albany, if not anything else, this here kind of resembles Broadway, New York City, Broadway. The way I came up with this idea was kind of by accident. Well, not by accident, but it was kind of a last minute throw in. And so when I approached Amity and I said, what are you looking to do for this video? She said she kind of wanted to make the theme like a Showgirl type of theme. Like that was all we had. And so I said, well, how can I find a way to make this theme fit with what we can do, make it realistic and also feasible because we were working with no budget at all. We had money to rent out the studio, which you will see momentarily, but let's just talk about this shot here. And so I used my wide angle lens. Actually, let me see if I can find it right here in my house. Actually, yeah. So this is the lens right here. This is my go-to lens for the wide shots. As you can see right here, I'll put it close because the focus is in. But yeah, this is a 15 millimeter, which was perfect for that look. I basically wanted to mount that lens on a gimbal just so I could get a nice smooth shot. Now the gimbal I am using is the Ronin 4S Pro. Very good gimbal. But let's talk about this. I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but as you can see this crosswalk, it's awesome. And you want to kind of think sometimes that, well, what we all know is a lot of times when they're, setting up an area, something, it's all strategic and it's purposeful. So a lot of times nothing is by accident when you're talking about construction and things like that. So we have this line right here. And it's nice because the palace is actually illuminated and it spills out right onto this line. So you can imagine I kind of started here you know, behind my hand. And I wanted to go straight in, you know, kind of a leading line right into this area here. And as you can see, this is Amity here. Maybe you can't see it, but she's right there. And the goal was to kind of intersect each other. So I'm going this way forward, and she's going from right to left. Whoops. She's going right to left, and she's going to meet me right here in the center. There's actually a little concrete piece of concrete, but it's like a square, and so we kind of marked like that's where our intersecting point was. So I'm headed that way, as you can imagine, headed straight, and she's coming from this way to meet me. So it's kind of an intersection. And then the goal was just to meet there. And then, so that was a push-in shot. And then I also wanted to show the whole front of the palace. So as you can see, you kind of see her walking towards me, and we met right there. So it's like a circle, but then there's a box there. And so right there, I wanted her to turn and look forward. And once she was turned forward, then I was able to get it up close. And I used my beloved 70-200, just because I love the compression of close-ups on this. And so I wanted to make sure that I was able to capture some of the lights up there. And then the goal was to just, she's a girl coming to work. She's a showgirl. And we all have those days where maybe we really don't want to go to work. Kind of left that up to the viewer to decide what that look was. Maybe she's just getting herself mentally prepared to go into work. Maybe this is her first time working here, something like that. It's left to imagination. And so she drops her shades. She looks, you know, we purposely dressed her in this scarf and a long black coat with her bag to give the illusion that she actually is appearing to work. Next, we have another wide angle. I basically had the lens on the gimbal, but on the ground, pointing up. And technically, she's not looking up at the sign, but she's just embracing her environment. You know, and we did that with a wide angle shot. Next, we have her kind of just walking in, and then the palace was actually closed. So, but we were able to replicate that by inserting a sound effect of a door opening. And then the next shot, this is actually, that was all that we did at the palace. Everything was outside, just those two shots. It took us about a total of 15-20 minutes just to get those shots. And that's because we wanted to do it over and over again, so we would have different versions to work with. And then this is inside, shout out to Central Studio in Albany. Everything else was done inside the studio. And so we wanted to purposely have, these are not props. These are just things that they have sitting around to clean the area. But this is some of the things that you may find in a, you know, backstage type of vibe. So we kind of like that. And then what I did was I had a light. You can't see it, but it was behind some shelves and some boxes and props and everything. And I just kind of beamed that into this way just so we could have some light on our background. And then everything else was just shots. And we were able to get this nice mirror shot, one of my favorite shots, basically standing behind her. She made sure that the mirror was able to pick up the camera angle, and then I was able to just focus into the mirror. And, you know, a couple of short clips here, you know, some split screens just to kind of pass time without being too lengthy. You know, this was able to convey some of the preparation that a showgirl would do before going to a show or performing. Again, then I had this screen. And then in this shot, she's kind of maybe apprehensive about her job. Again, I will leave that up to the viewer to decide what she's doing, but maybe she's apprehensive about going on stage, or she's psyching herself up so that she can hit the stage. And then that's pretty much the end of that. And then we just used a little bit of an overlay, and then we go to part 3. And here is the performance shots, all in the studio. Beautiful studio. They have awesome lighting and things like that. We had props. She had this thing here. We also had a kind of a mask that we didn't even use in editing. And then, just everything else was just shots of her. We were sure to make sure that we got different angles and things like that. This is one of my favorite shots. I always like to partially block the frame, and that's why I like this lens so much, because the 70 to 200 I'm speaking of, because it gets so much compression. Once you're focused in, anything in its way, partially blocking, will just be a blur, and it's just kind of a dreamy type shot. One of my favorite shots. And then I stood on a ladder for the crane shot overhead. Chose to make this black and white. You can see the mask I was talking about right there, and she's just basically sitting on the couch. And then the next shot, here comes her clone walking in to the frame, and she basically circles around her, and maybe she's getting her ready, or getting her, involved, making sure she's show ready or something like that. Maybe she's teasing her. Maybe she's antagonizing her. Again, that's left to the viewer to decide. And then that's it. Pretty much, she has her. She's talking to her, and she's sitting here. She sees her, but she's kind of like not paying any attention to her at this time. And then she decides to ultimately just get up and walk away. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, guys, if you have any other questions about this shots, or what equipment I use, I will list some of the things below so you guys could take a look. That's pretty much it. A shout out to Amity, and big shout out to Homage Beats, who provided me with some custom music. I basically explained what I wanted to do with this edit. I kind of told him I wanted maybe a retro feel. That's why you had that super, super jazzy music at the very beginning. But then to transition, I wanted to make it a little, modern. And so he was able to do that. But the way we connected the two genres of music was basically by him, and this is what he did on his own. He inserted a trumpet, which is jazzy, and so that's how it all came together. But that's pretty much it. I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.